Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another installment of everyone's favorite short show on the World Wide Web. This is Storytime with Jimmy, longtime WWE referee Jimmy Korderas. My name is Donnie Da Silva, and Jimmy, I just had this thought in my head. We are in Royal Rumble season. The Rumble is around the corner. I know for many people out there, it's their favorite PLE on the calendar each and every year. It's certainly mine. But there is a Rumble that stands out probably in everyone's memory. We go all the way back to 2005. You were there. There was kind of a messy finish. And then
say the least.
And then Vince McMahon ends up not being able to walk out of the building. Take us back.
Okay. I'm going to get to that at the end of this, but Royal Rumble 2005, basically that was during the brand split. So we had two Raw referees, which were Chad Patton and Jack Doan, and myself and Charles Robinson, the SmackDown referees. And going into the finish, it was going to be Dave Batista and John Cena, the last two members in the ring. And as they both go over the top, Dave was supposed to hook the top rope and have John fall down to the floor. Dave Batista wins the Royal Rumble. He goes on to WrestleMania to face, I don't remember who it was, but not the point. He was the Raw representative. John Cena was a SmackDown superstar at the time. But as they went over the top rope, you can just imagine with all those guys leaning on the ropes and going over the top and all that sweat and oil that gets on the ropes. I guess Dave couldn't get a grip on that top rope, and they slipped and they both went down, and you couldn't have timed it any more perfectly if you had planned it this way. But they both landed at precisely the same time.
And this is not like one of those situations that you told us about a couple of weeks ago with Undertaker and Batista in the cage.
Right.
Where that had to be a little bit of TV magic. This was legitimately, they both fell over and hit the floor at the same time.
Absolutely. And again, this is live pay-per-view. It's not tape television, like you said, where you can edit these things afterwards. So because the finish was originally Batista going over, the Raw referees went over and raised his hand. And Charles and I were just kind of hanging out in the background, and all of a sudden we hear from Gorilla in our IFBs and our earpieces, okay, SmackDown refs, go over there and raise John Cena's hand. I guess they watched it back, the replay in the truck, and they said, damn, they landed both at the same time. So, run over, we were raising John, and we're doing the battling back and forth. No, Cena won. No, Batista won. No, Cena won. No, Batista won. And while this is going on out at ringside, we're also hearing in our IFBs, they're saying, okay, referees that are backstage, go find Eric Bischoff and Teddy Long, the respective general managers, because they wanted them to come out and do the argument and then restart the match and so forth. Couldn't find them. I don't know what the rumors are as to where they were.
They ran and hid.
Ran and hid, tried to beat traffic. I don't know what the deal was, but they couldn't find him. And all of a sudden, here comes storming out from Gorilla, Mr. McMahon. But this was a different face on. This wasn't Mr. McMahon. This was Vince, who was hot. You could see it. He comes up, he pulls his blazer off, he throws it down. He comes down to ringside. By this time, we're all in the ring now, arguing back and forth. Vince dives under the bottom rope. He goes to stand up, and boom. He lands on his butt with his legs straight out, and he's not getting up. And we're wondering, okay, what the heck is going on here? And Vince is like screaming, "Come here!" So we go over, and he tells us what to do, and we're restarting the match so they can do the finish over again. As Vince crawls out of the ring and slides out, a couple of guys came over to help him, and he's, Vince is a proud guy. So he started screaming at him, "Get away from me!" And he wouldn't let anybody help him. So he managed to get himself backstage, where again, he wouldn't let anybody help him walk or anything. And later on, okay, they went over the finish and they did it, and Batista goes over. But later on, we find out that Vince tore both his quads and managed to get backstage on his own steam without any help, because he refused any help because he'd make him look weak. You know how Vince is. He's got to look like the big tough guy. And then back, and everybody was like shocked, like they're going like, I don't know how he was able to walk. It was insane.
I wonder if he actually did more damage to himself by walking, like as opposed to being stretchered out or wheelchaired out.
He probably did. I mean,
yeah.
But then again, when you tear both quads completely,
maybe they were.
How much more damage can you do?
Maybe at that moment they were partial tears, and then they became totally torn. You know, I don't know, but yeah, that's a crazy scenario. Like, now, do you remember backstage after all of this? Like, did you see Vince? Did you hear Vince? Or was it like shove him in the back of an ambulance and let's go?
I have no idea, because by the time I got back there, I didn't see Vince.
Right. Okay. So
because I had to get ready.
Gone.
Like he was probably gone by then, because I had to get ready, you know, get changed into my work gear and start tearing down the ring. So
right.
We were trying to kind of catch wind from anybody. No, he's getting looked after. That's all we heard.
Right.
He's getting looked after. And now I don't think it was the training room. I think they took him to a medical facility, because, you know, at that time you weren't allowed to take anybody to the hospital.
So weird. Yeah, absolutely insane. And when you go back to the initial error, I hate using the word botch, the initial error, if they had done that spot 100 times, 99 of those times, one of the two guys would have landed on the floor first. You know what I mean? It's just a fluke, especially when you look at the differences in their weight, body composition, the weird angle that they went over the top rope. It's bizarre that they landed at the same time.
It is, because both men have 4 appendages, and you'd think that at least one of them would hit first. You know what I mean? And for them to land flat, because your natural instinct, especially if something is not going as predicted or as planned, is to stick an arm or a leg out there to prevent it from happening. But they both laid out flat. And I know personally, I've gone back and watched the landing, I don't know how many times.
Sure.
You know, and every time I said, this is incredible how it just panned out, and actually made it better. It actually made it better. I think if the original finish had gone off the way it did, it would have been anticlimactic.
I know at the time there were a lot of people that said, well, wait a minute, we've had a Royal Rumble that ended with a double winner before with Lex and Brett. They could have just done that. But the thing is, I think Vince was married to his plan at the time of moving forward with Dave, right?
Right.
And so I think they wanted to make sure that they got to that. They could have found a way out of it because they had precedent for it with the Lex and Brett thing. But they wanted to go this way. Do you know, you may not even have sightline to this. Back in those days, there wasn't as much time, I don't think, for rehearsing specific spots. Do you know if John and Dave actually went over that spot physically in the ring, or just talked about it?
No, they just talked about it. They didn't really physically go over it. It was kind of like they were walking through it.
Right.
Without actually doing the go over the top kind of thing. Just like, okay, right here, I'll go to throw you out and blah, blah, blah. You hook the rope and that's about it.
That's a spot that nobody wants to have to physically practice. Right. And no, for sure. But in hindsight, maybe one that should have been practiced, or Dave would have said, this might be harder than I think.
Yeah, but like I said, you know, those ropes get slick.
They do, yeah.
Especially at the end of a Royal Rumble with so many participants going over.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of those guys slather that stuff on.
The hot stuff.
Yeah.
That is hilarious. Thank you so much, Jimmy. Ladies and gentlemen, if there is a story from any time during the last 30 years or so in professional wrestling, and you want to see if Jimmy has any insight or history or knowledge of it, let us know. Send us an email, questions@hugepopradio.com. But instead of, but in case we don't get a specific email, we will have a brand new story for all of you next week. Thanks so much, Jimmy.
No problem. Take care, boys.